behind Star Wars.
The beginnings of Luke Skywalker date to the very first draft produced by George Lucas of what would eventually become Star Wars. In 1973, 4 years before the release of A New Hope, Lucas penned an unrecognisable 2-page synopsis titled The Journal of the Whills, which depicted the training of apprentice C.J. Thorpe as a Jedi Bendu space commander by the legendary Mace Windu. Frustrated that movie studio execs found his story too difficult to understand, Lucas then authored a 14-page story treatment titled The Star Wars, which introduced a character called General Luke Skywalker, tasked with rescuing a rebel princess from the clutches of an evil empire in a major thematic parallel with Akira Kurosawa's 1958 classic The Hidden Fortress. By May 1974, Lucas had expanded the film treatment into a rough draft screenplay, in which Skywalker was described as a silver-bearded general and Jedi master. A new character included Anakin Starkiller, an adolescent hero who lived together with his father Kain Starkiller, a cyborg Jedi and a friend of General Luke. These 3 characters were scrapped by the time of the second draft's completion in January 1975, in which a farmboy named Luke makes his first appearance without any surname whatsoever. Instead, Lucas retained the catchy surname Skywalker for a legendary holy man known as the Skywalker, said to have founded the Republic in the distant past, while a character known as the Starkiller was described as a charismatic Jedi with a long silver beard, flowing white robes, and penetrating eyes. August 1975's third draft saw the farmboy Luke take centre stage in Lucas's story for the first time with the surname Starkiller. This third script is the first to closely resemble the final film, with Luke developing from a daydreaming farmboy into the Jedi who destroys the Death Star, and represents the first true draft of A New Hope. Importantly, the story of Ben Kenobi and the tale of his fallen student Vader were also introduced for the first time, with Luke's father described as having been killed when Vader stole a Kyber crystal to become a Sith Lord. The fourth and final draft, dated January 1st, 1976, differed little from the theatrical edition of the film. Luke's last name Starkiller remained for the first few months of production, and Mark Hamill himself used it when filming his character's first meeting with Leia.
I'm Luke Skywalker, I'm here to rescue you.
You're who?
The surname was swapped for Skywalker at the last minute due to what Lucas saw as unpleasant connotations surrounding a word such as Starkiller. Other last-minute revisions made to the final draft included the deletion of scenes involving Luke's childhood friend, Biggs Darklighter on Tatooine, and the addition of Ben Kenobi's death.
And I warn you, if you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Mark Hamill was aged just 25 when he was cast in the role, having auditioned at the urging of friend and future Freddy Krueger star Robert Englund. According to Lucas, auditioning for the roles of Luke, Princess Leia and Han Solo took the best part of a year screen testing a number of different actors for the 3 main characters. Other actors who auditioned for the role of Luke included Andrew Stevens,
Organa Major's been destroyed.
Charles Martin Smith,
Organa Major's been destroyed?
and Robbie Benson.
Organa Major's been destroyed?
Ben Burt, the main sound designer of the original Star Wars films, also auditioned for the character's role. At the end of the process, Lucas sat down with his team and all agreed that Hamill, Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford had the best chemistry. Hamill, up till then a bit part actor from California, was paid $1,000 a week during shooting and later received 0.25% of A New Hope's profits. Star Wars From the Adventures of Luke Skywalker, the official novel adaptation of A New Hope published before its release in 1976, featured a number of differences from the final film. Credited to George Lucas but actually ghostwritten by Alan Dean Foster, the book introduces Luke right after the battle aboard the Tantive V4 after witnessing it through his electro binoculars. This scene was actually shot before being deleted, along with other scenes from the book such as those involving Luke's friends Biggs, Kami and Fixer on Tatooine. The novel also depicted Luke as 20 rather than 19, described his land speeder as having an enclosed cockpit unlike the open cockpit seen in the film, and had Han jump into the garbage chute before him, whereas in the film Han goes first. Released in May 1977, the film was an enormous, unexpected success and Hamill became a household name overnight. But Hamill's meteoric rise as an actor had almost ended in tragedy just months earlier, when he was involved in a car wreck on January 11th, 1977, which left him with a fractured nose and left cheekbone, requiring 7 hours of surgery. As a result, the land speeder pickup shots featured in A New Hope actually featured a double of Hamill's. According to an urban legend, the Wampa attack on Luke Skywalker at the beginning of The Empire Strikes Back was written to explain away the facial injuries Hamill suffered in the accident. But this is unlikely, as the scene was penned by the late scriptwriter Lee Brackett just months before she passed away in 1978, and there is little evidence that she was even aware of Hamill's minor facial changes. That same year, a makeup-caked Hamill appeared in the much-maligned Star Wars Holiday Special, while filming began on Empire several months later on March 5th, 1979. Shooting started under freezing conditions in Norway, at the Hardangerfjorden Glacier near the town of Finns for the film's Hoth scenes. While filming in Norway, the crew encountered the worst winter storm there in 50 years, with temperatures dropping to -20 Fahrenheit with 18 feet of snowfall. On one occasion, the crew were unable to exit their hotel. Director Irving Kershner, a veteran independent filmmaker and Lucas's former professor, achieved the shot of Luke's exit of the Wampa Cave by opening the hotel doors and filming Mark Hamill running out into the snow while the crew remained warm inside. The production moved to London's Elstree Studios on March 13th, and great secrecy surrounded the fact that Darth Vader was actually Luke's father. Like the rest of the crew except for Hamill, Vader actor David Prowse was given a script that contained the false revelatory line, "Obi-Wan killed your father," with Vader voice actor James Earl Jones overdubbing the true line, "No, I am your father," in post-production. Nevertheless, the twist was actually guessed by Prowse a year earlier in 1978, when he shared the greatest spoiler in movie history with a newspaper in California. Luckily, the internet wasn't around and the article gained little traction. Hamill, who himself was told of the twist just moments before filming the scene, refused to tell anyone, including his wife, and Harrison Ford didn't learn the truth until he watched the film at its premiere.
So at the screening, when that happened, Harrison turned to me and said, "Hey kid, you didn't tell me that."
The Empire Strikes Back netted Hamill $1 million and the promise of further riches ahead of the third movie in the Star Wars saga, tentatively titled Revenge of the Jedi by Lucas. Filming began on January 11th, 1982 and lasted through May 20th, 1982, a schedule 6 weeks shorter than Empire's. The shoot commenced with the scene later deleted from the finished film, where the heroes get caught in a sandstorm as they leave Tatooine. Another sequence cut during editing was Luke's introduction on Tatooine, in which he fixes his new green lightsaber in a small cave. While attempting to film Luke's battle with the Rancor beast, Lucas insisted on trying to film the scene in the same style as the original Godzilla movies, using a stunt performer inside a suit. The production team made several attempts but were unable to create an adequate result. Lucas eventually relented and decided to film the Rancor as a high-speed puppet. In late April, production moved to the redwood forests of Northern California, near Crescent City, for 2 weeks of shooting Endor's exterior scenes. The inventor of Steadicam, Garrett Brown, later shot backgrounds for the speeder chase between June 15th and 17th, 1982, by walking at around 5 miles an hour and projecting the 1 frame a second footage at 24 frames a second, which made the motion seen in the film appear as if it were moving at around 120 miles an hour. Hamill and Fisher then shot their speeder scenes in front of a green screen to achieve the final effect. As for the final duel between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader on the second Death Star, Hamill himself portrayed Luke in most of the shots, while Colin Skeeping, Hamill's stunt double for all 3 of the original trilogy films, stood in for the more acrobatic moments. Vader, however, was almost exclusively played by stunt double Bob Anderson during the duel, with British stage actor Sebastian Shaw providing his final moments without a helmet. Prior to the film's release, Mark Hamill speculated that the film would include Luke's turn to the dark side and eventual redemption, but it's unclear whether this was wishful thinking on his part or a plot point that was genuinely considered. Nevertheless, it was certainly hinted that Luke was on a dark path before Return of the Jedi hit cinemas. Publicity shots prominently displayed a black-clad Luke next to Vader entering the throne room, with his handcuffs left deliberately just out of shot. The dark clothing worn by Luke throughout the film was a deliberate red herring aimed at misdirecting the audience's attention toward the very real threat posed to Luke by the dark side, through his anger towards Obi-Wan and Yoda for lying to him about his father, and his fear of confronting and redeeming him. When a black-clad hooded Luke force-choked Jabba's guards at the beginning of the movie, a power only previously displayed by Vader, viewers were made painfully aware of Luke's precarious position between the light and dark sides of the Force. George Lucas, however, preferred the idea of a happy ending in keeping with the original trilogy's black and white moral code. An early version of the film was to end with Luke walking off alone, leaving his friends behind in true gunfighter samurai-like fashion, an idea later explored in the sequel trilogy. But Lucas feared a downbeat ending to his trilogy would throw a wrench in the merchandising goldmine from which truckloads of money flowed in. As for Luke and Leia being siblings, Lucas didn't decide that until the writing stage of the movie, which at least explains this.
He's my brother.
With its title altered to Return of the Jedi shortly before release on May 25, 1983, the film marked Hamill's last theatrical appearance in the Star Wars universe for some 33 years. Nevertheless, Luke Skywalker took on a life of his own in expanded universe fiction prior to Disney's purchase of the franchise in 2012, not all of it for the betterment of the character. Overall, Legends Luke was a convoluted mess, who fought his own clone created from his lost hand on Bespin, married the Imperial assassin sent to kill him in Mara Jade, and was even turned to the dark side by a cloned Darth Sidious. All in all, it was a bit of a disaster. Although Hamill went on to become a successful voice actor, Luke was portrayed by Bob Bergen in several video games, Joshua Farden in the Return of the Jedi radio play, and Mark Benninghoffen in the audio adaptations of Rebel Agent and Jedi Knight from the Dark Forces saga. Luke Skywalker has also been portrayed in voiceovers by C. Andrew Nelson in Star Wars X-Wing, Lloyd Floyd in various recent video games and the Lego short The Empire Strikes Out, and Matt Lanter in the radio drama Star Wars Smuggler's Gambit. In 2000, Mark Hamill reprised his role as Luke Skywalker for a speaking role in a commercial for the New Jedi Order Vector Prime, the first of the New Jedi Order novels by R.A. Salvatore.
And I'm not sure if this time we can win. Star Wars Vector Prime by R.A. Salvatore, the first novel of the New Jedi Order.
In later years, Hamill also reprised his role by voicing both Luke and himself on shows such as Family Guy, The Simpsons and Robot Chicken. A far younger Luke Skywalker, however, would appear as a newborn during the closing scenes of Revenge of the Sith in 2005, played by the son of editor Roger Barton, Aidan Barton, who also portrayed baby Leia. Back during the filming of the original trilogy, George Lucas told Mark Hamill that he would be needed to reprise the role when he was middle-aged as part of the director's original plan for 3 separate Skywalker trilogies. Hamill finally learned of the sequel trilogy over the summer of the year 2012 at a Star Wars Celebration lunch, where Lucas told him Disney had begun developing Episode 7. Hamill, who had shaved his beard to reprise his role as Trickster in the Flash TV series, was then forced to grow his facial hair back and get in shape after the returns of Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford were also confirmed. Luke's lack of screen time in The Force Awakens was due to concerns by screenwriter Michael Arndt that his presence would mean the audience would have less interest in protagonist Rey, leading to an agreement that he instead be used as a plot device at the end of the film to set up a cliffhanger, literally. Director J.J. Abrams and his co-writer Larry Kasdan later admitted that Luke would have overshadowed the rest of the movie had he been introduced earlier. Hamill attended meetings for script readings, in doing so helping to concede Luke's minimal role in the film. Instead of dialogue, he read stage directions, which Abrams said allowed him to remain involved in the process while helping to introduce the franchise to its newest stars, namely Daisy Ridley, John Boyega and Adam Driver. At the time of shooting his appearance in The Force Awakens in 2014, Hamill was 63, 2 years older than the late great Alec Guinness was when he filmed his scenes as Ben Kenobi in 1976. Hamill was initially concerned by how Luke was written in Episode 8 The Last Jedi, and admitted it took him a while to come around to director Rian Johnson's depiction of Luke as a more reluctant hero. Johnson deemed it best to conclude Luke's Last Jedi arc with him dying, partly because his passing was victorious and peaceful, unlike the violent murder of Han Solo by his son Kylo Ren in The Force Awakens, and partly to allow the final chapter of the trilogy to focus on the newest characters, particularly Rey and Kylo. Hamill was mostly concerned about Luke dying, believing he should return a triumphant hero, but Johnson argued that if Luke just came back like he did in the original trilogy, an optimistic fighter, he would just be an older version of Rey. Hamill later expressed regret over his comments regarding the characterization, saying that such creative differences are common, but usually remain private, and that Johnson had made a great film. He later revealed he had similarly disputed the way the character was written in Return of the Jedi, as he thought Luke should have taken a darker turn. With J.J. Abrams likely to hand Luke Skywalker his return as a Force ghost in Star Wars Episode 9, as everyone's favourite farmboy turned Jedi Master would say,
See you around.